Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals, the podcast all species can enjoy together. My name is Shannon Cutts. I am an animal sensitive and intuitive, a Reiki master practitioner, and an animal communication teacher with animallovelanguages.com. And for our purposes here today, I am also your friendly neighborhood hostess and guide through the wild, wise, and wonderful world of interspecies communication. Call me crazy, but I truly believe that animal communication has the power to save, heal, and restore our planet for all species to enjoy and share. When we learn to communicate with one another, we begin to realize we are so much more alike than different. We care about each other. We become friends. On this podcast, we talk about what the animals have to say and share, and why our pets truly are our partners, empathic friends, and teachers. I am so glad you have joined us here for this fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals. Shannon here. And on the docket today, I would love to talk to you about developing your sixth sense. Or should I say sixth senses? Because as a matter of fact, we have many. They come in a nice, neat little software package installed within our greater iOS, what I call our intuitive operating system. And all of that is neatly embedded within our greater hardware, our human operating system. And we are so lucky because right now we are living in a time where collectively these topics are by and large back on the table. We can rewind even a decade, maybe a couple decades, and certainly we can rewind back into the 50 or 100-year marks, and we can see when these topics were not only off the table, but downright dangerous to even entertain, let alone discuss with anyone else. And so that is why I feel, even though, yes, there is so much chaos on the planet in so many areas, and we're really at war with ourselves, many of us, both internally as well as externally, trying to decide how are we going to navigate this opportunity that is on the table. Wake up or stay asleep. And in my world, we vastly prefer waking up because it feels better. It feels lighter. It turns out to be a lot more fun. And most importantly, we're pretty practical around here, it works better. And so whether or not you happen to be an aspiring student of your own intuition or even of animal communication, maybe you're listening right now and you're one of my animal communication adventure to mastery students. Or maybe you're studying with someone else, or maybe you're a practitioner in your own right and you're looking to refresh your skills. That is never off the table for me personally. Every time I teach any of these topics, I am simultaneously going back to the table as a student myself and digging deeper and seeing what else I can learn. And so that is what I want to present to you as we launch into today's exploratory adventure is first and foremost to allow yourself to be a student. By the time most of us hit at least the double digits, by that I even mean 10, 11, 12, 15, 21, those around us in our world, they're expecting us to be grown. Living in the information age that we are marinating in today, it's awfully hard to argue ourselves out of expecting that from ourselves. Like, you should know this already. You should know how to do this already. And not only that, but you should be an expert at it already. Look at all the resources that are available. Look at all the opportunities that are available. And yet, what tends to be lacking for most of us, especially in these intensely left-brained, individualistic, westernized cultures that many of us live in today, such as what I am steeped in here in the United States, we still lack the structure because nobody has ever bothered to sit down and teach us how this intuitive thing works and how to begin our learning journey in earnest formally and how to continue it and how to practice it and what makes it practical and when might it come in handy in real world structural assistance and aids that can create a sense of forward momentum for us. Yes, I've learned this. Now I'm practicing it. Now I'm building on it. Now I'm beginning to feel confident and comfortable using it. Yes, now I am on the road even to mastering it. And without that structure, it is hard to feel like we're making any progress, let alone consistent progress. And so, what I want to walk you through here today, the first thing I want you to know is that there is something for you here. There is an invitation, there is an opportunity. So, intuitive lesson number one, when you're aiming to open up your intuitive pathways, the very first and most fundamental lesson that we just gloss over, we skip over so completely, that makes all the difference is we must pay attention to ourselves, to ourself, you paying attention to you, becoming a student of you. When my father was growing up, he was the baby of the family, and my uncle was the eldest of four. So we had boy, girl, girl, and then boy. And so my dad had a lot of opportunity to watch my uncle make lots of mistakes. He shares the story once the grandparents gave my uncle this beautiful watch. Well, my uncle was very mechanically inclined, but he lacked structure. Nobody else in his family really ran in that direction. And so he just had this natural curiosity, but he was a kid. He didn't really think it through and really put steps in place to help guide his learning process. So the moment he got this big, beautiful new watch that, of course, my dad was so jealous of, he could not resist taking it apart. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you've been there. I do this with intuition. I don't so much do this with mechanical things anymore because I know full good and well I'll never get them back together again. But my uncle didn't really think that far ahead because, of course, he's still a little boy. So he just took the whole watch apart. He did not document his steps. He did not do it in a methodical manner. He just got the backing off and everything came spilling out. And so, of course, he couldn't put it back together again. And of course, this caused some tension and some confusion within the family unit with his grandparents. And what ended up happening was it discouraged my uncle from further explorations. And the reason that I share that story today is because so many of us, myself included, we first felt our intuition, what I like to call my inner teacher. We all have to come to our own understanding of what the word intuition means to us, how it feels, what it looks like, how it acts, how we know it's happening. And if you want to learn more about that, I highly, highly, highly cannot recommend enough that you enroll in one of my free intuitive development for pet parents webinars. I do them pretty much every month, and they're designed to help you apply what we're talking about today specifically to parenting your pet, to making more confident, competent care decisions on your pet's behalf. So you'll definitely want to get on my email list if you're not already, because I always announce the new webinar dates there first. And you can find that link to get on my Love Letters community email list in the show notes here. But like most of us, I too began my intuitive adventures, explorations relatively early in life. And I remember I had been in a church class. We were raised lightly Methodist here in the Deep South, more for socialization and for my folks to have an opportunity every Sunday morning to spend time with people their own age. And I remember that there was a guest speaker series, and some folks were coming in to our little class of first graders or whatever. I think I was in first grade at the time. And they were talking about the stories, or as they are called in the Christian faith, parables of different religious traditions. And even at that very early age, at 6 years old, I remember listening to the speaker one morning, and I don't remember what faith she was from, but I remember thinking, gosh, these stories sound so familiar. But typically, the way that I've heard them told, the characters live in a different part of the world and they're wearing different clothes and they have different sounding names. And I came to this realization that the path is the path, and there are many ways to get there. This is not a podcast about religious debate or any of that good stuff. This is just a story from my own early intuitive awakening, sensing into something that felt true for me personally. And that's the important thing here. Whether this particular story resonates with you or feels true for you or not, that is also part of your intuitive awakening process. But for me, there was something here that was like, ding, ding, ding. You've hit on something important. Maybe even something that can draw people together. Maybe even something that might be a path to peace. And I remember going home, and my poor mom, there was the two of us and my dad, and everybody was hungry. She's trying to make lunch. And she asked me, how was Sunday school? And I said, great. I realized that all the stories of these different faiths have a lot of similarities. And it seems like they're all pretty much the same story. And I probably didn't say it as eloquently as that. And my mom said something like, that's nice, dear. Lunch will be ready in 5 minutes. Because, of course, at that time, she was wearing a different hat and she had a different set of priorities on her plate. But little 6-year-old me felt, rightly or wrongly, very shut down. Like, oh, this isn't a topic that's interesting to anyone else in my world. It's not a topic that anyone else is open to talking with me about. Therefore, that wonderful wide open road that I thought I discovered turned out to be a dirt path that just got washed out by a passing storm named lunch is ready in 5 minutes. And it would be years before I would return to that line of questioning and curiosity, this time as an adult to explore it further. And that's a story for another podcast episode. But this is so common for so many of us. One story I hear very often from my pet parents who become animal communication students is, when I was little, I just talked with the animals and I just felt like they understood me and I understood them perfectly. And it just flowed. Where did that go? And my response is it didn't go anywhere. It's still within you. But in a sense, it did go somewhere. It went underground because it wasn't an area of exploration, of study where there seemed to be any path forward. And it wasn't an area of curiosity and interest that was mirrored back to you by those older and so-called wiser adults in your world at that time. And so there just didn't seem to be any opportunity, any path forward to continue that exploration. And so it went underground for a while. And now, as adults, in such an open, a free-for-all atmosphere where we have such unprecedented access to share ourselves with one another, to initiate conversations about topics of interest, to find our people, our tribe, even if they live on the other side of the world, even if they are different ethnicity or age or gender or preference than we are, we have access to build our own community and to create structure around ourselves so that we can awaken these deep soul level childhood senses once again. Children and animals, both wild and domestic, are the most intuitive, empathic, sensitive souls on the planet. And it would do we adults a service to spend more time around these unabashedly awakened souls more often. So that's where we need to start today. And you might even want to pause this episode for just a moment and ponder and just ask yourself with genuine curiosity, do I remember any moments in my growing up years and my early life experiences where I just felt something and I didn't question it, or I just knew something and I didn't question it, or I felt like I was having interspecies conversations and I didn't question it. Anything where it was like it just was happening to me and I didn't question it. And ask yourself, well, would I still like to explore that further? And if your own answer is yes, then know that you have your own permission and independent agency now to continue your exploration, and recognize that that early sensing, knowing, feeling, smelling, tasting, whatever it might have been that you were experiencing, it didn't go anywhere. It's still within you. You still have access to it. And now it's just about returning to it and rebuilding that early confidence that you likely had before anyone else in your world told you that it was just made up in your head, that it was too woo, that we don't talk about that, that of course that couldn't possibly be happening, that you got in trouble for mentioning it, whatever it was. We wipe that slate clean and start afresh as a student, a curious student. And here I'd like to share another little story with you. This is one of my favorite stories to share with my animal communication students. It's the story of Albert Einstein. He is famously quoted as saying there are two ways to live life. One is as if nothing is a miracle, the other as if everything is a miracle, and implying that we get to choose. So maybe you didn't get a choice when you were little, but you have a choice now. So which path do you choose? And the reason that this quote has become such a motto and encouragement to me is because after taking time to read Einstein's personal story, one of the many things that I picked up and learned is Einstein felt, sensed, even dreamed about his now famous world-changing theory of relativity long before he had the words or the math to back it up, long before he had any kind of ability to communicate his truth, the truth of what he was sensing and feeling and intuiting within himself and all around him to anyone else. And if you, like me, are a little bit of a geeky Einstein student, you may recall that his growing up years weren't exactly glamorous. It wasn't like he was voted most likely to do anything but be slightly below average. His grades in school weren't fantastic. None of his teachers were praising him on Parent-Teacher Day. He couldn't even hold down a job. And his dad, who was a bit of an influencer in their community, had to beg one of his colleagues to give his son a job in a patent clerk office. And there he sat in his patent clerk office day in and day out, working on his theory of relativity on the side because it felt so real and so true to him that he could not put it down. He could not just discount it or push it aside. And that perseverance is everything when it comes to our intuitive adventuring. We have to own for ourselves, within ourselves, what we know, feel, sense, see, hear, smell, taste, etc., for ourselves as our personal truth. This is not about convincing anybody else. This is not about using our influence to sway anyone else's beliefs or opinions. This is about knowing what we know within ourselves, for ourselves, and not wavering on that. When you ask a little child, is there a monster under your bed? They're not going to waver. Well, I don't know. You check and tell me what you think. They're like, no, it's down there. Go and get it. We need that kind of inner authenticity in order to rebuild that early life confidence again. That's why I share Einstein's story. Can you imagine what our world would be like if Einstein had not persevered? If he had let others talk him out of what he felt and sensed and knew to be true within himself? We don't, most of us anyway, I know I don't typically walk around viewing myself as the next Einstein in the making, but we can all have our own Einsteinian impact, each in our own way, if we can rebuild this inner trust with ourselves, within ourselves. So it first and foremost begins by wondering, noticing, getting curious about what's going on within me, in my inner world. Really getting interested in ourselves again, the way you would be interested in somebody that you were falling in love with. When we can become interested in ourselves, interested, as if we are falling in love with ourselves all over again, or perhaps for the first time. This is the level of interest we need to awaken our intuitive senses, our sixth sensory toolkit. So, the second thing I want to share with you is actually also about Einstein, who is one of my huge mentors and teachers on this intuitive journey. Einstein is in the very good company of many fellow luminaries in science, in mathematics, in art, in philosophy, who swear by, or swore by, I guess I should say, past tense, napping as a pathway to new ideas. And I have nicknamed this pathway the imagination to intuition pathway. If you are at all familiar with the practice of hypnagogic napping, then you may already be aware of the power of the simple nap to deal us back in to our awareness of our six sensory pathways. This imagination to intuition pathway is so powerful when we're just in that twilight state, which is why when I'm working with my one-to-one pet parent clients and we're talking about their pets reincarnating, the meditations and contemplations that I guide them through ideally are best done during these twilight periods when we're just falling asleep or we're just waking up. And this has been so powerful for so many inventors and forward thinkers over the centuries that many have actually worked with timers, setting a timer for 30 seconds or 4 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, or even sleeping and waking in even chunks of time every single day so that they can catch the freshest ideas just as they're drifting off to sleep, and especially just as they're coming out of that subconscious dominant state. So the dream state, the subconscious pre-waking state is where our intuition is naturally active, primarily through the pathway of imagination, which is a subconscious process. So, imagination and intuition share the subconscious as a pathway. This is something else very, very important to understand about how and why so many of our best ideas seem to come when our brains, our left brain minds, are just drifting a little bit. They're just drifting. They're out there in the cosmos doing their thing. Maybe we're moving our body. Maybe we're in the shower or we're swimming somewhere. Maybe we're just waking up from a dream state. In my life as a singer-songwriter, the prior aspiration of mine many moons ago, some of my best songwriting ideas would come when I wasn't trying to write songs. When I was asleep at night, sometimes I would compose whole beautiful melodies in my head. And then because I wasn't intuitively trained, I would lose them when I would wake up. And I was forever running around looking for my little battery powered tape recorder at the time. So, yes, I seriously just dated myself for you. So I could capture that song snippet that was running through my head while I was out on a run or a bike ride or picking weeds in the front lawn. So it's when we free our mind that it returns to us laden with gifts for us in the form of intuitive knowings and sensings and feelings and great, beautiful new ideas. So, starting to understand when your left brain mind is active, which during the beta states for most of us, these very intensive, mentally active states during the day where we're on our computer, we're doing our work, we're answering emails, we're solving problems that involves lots of words and numbers and data analysis, et cetera, et cetera. Well, our intuition is necessarily going to take a back seat. It's almost like our two brain hemispheres are playing ping pong. And for most of us, our intuition has to sit on the bench a lot. So if you're serious about beginning your intuitive adventure journey, it's worth finding time every day to put your intuition in the game. Now, the way that I teach this in my Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery student learning program is in small, quickly applicable sound bites, short lessons where you can take what you're learning and you can begin to implement it right away, almost to interrupt your normal way of receiving information and making decisions and substitute a different way. And you can start using every single tool right away because we don't have time to stop and unlearn the old and then learn something new. No, we have to create these new neural pathways within the context of our daily life as it's unfolding. So, whether that is giving yourself a little bit more grace to take that nap in the middle of the day, if you're really tired and you just need a break, or to sit down for 10 minutes of quiet meditation, or what I like to do sometimes is go outside and just lie down on the grass and stare up at the sky and allow my brain to just quiet. I can feel myself breathing, reconnect with myself. So, just putting these small little pattern interrupt practices in so that you can begin to walk with yourself through your day versus you're either constantly ordering yourself around or you're backseat driving yourself later. To simply be with yourself in these moments throughout your day as you're making decisions, as you're receiving opportunities, as you're coming up on problems that you need to solve, to stop and breathe. This is my number one tip for developing your intuition, is simply to do what I call parasympathetic breathing, which is to take 3 deep inhales and 3 extra long exhales so that you can slow down the fight, flight, or freeze that we perpetually live in, pop over into the rest, digest, and reconnect mode that intuition favors, to be here now. So, the next thing I want to share with you, so far, we understand that we've got these 2 different pathways through which we view our day, make decisions, greet new opportunities, sort through problems, either very heady, very logical, very analytical, left brain mode. A lot of thinking, 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 and there's really no feeling. And intuition is sitting on the bench, it's tapping its little foot saying, "When are you going to put me in, coach?" And then we've got this other way, which feels a little floaty, feels a little airy fairy, maybe. If we take time to simply be with ourselves and notice, wonder, get curious, how am I feeling about this? What feels right to me? Even notice when you're saying words like I think versus I feel. That tells you which brain hemisphere you're in. So when we think about, I feel like I'm getting a bad vibe about this. Okay, then you've just showed up for yourself. You've acknowledged what you're feeling. And now you've got some new information to help you sort through whatever it is on your plate, whatever problem, whatever opportunity, whatever it is. So making time to do what one of my mentors calls slowing down to speed up, whether it's just lying on your back on the grass, staring at the sky for a few minutes, taking a shower, taking a nap if you really need it, and then paying extra close attention to what unfolds as you're slowly waking back up into conscious reality. But don't skip over that subconscious gold. Can be especially useful if you are wrestling with a decision or a problem that you don't know how to work through, and you stop wrestling with it and you take a break, go for a bike ride, lie on the grass, meditate, take a little nap, and then notice what unfolds as you're moving through that subconscious mental space. Maybe the next step just comes to you. It's amazing how often that works, and works really well if we take a moment to add it into our routine. Now I want to shift gears a little bit and actually talk about your 6 sensory toolkit, your intuitive senses. Because, of course, we are all very familiar with what I call our outer facing conscious senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, tactile sensation, emotion, feelings, energy, and motion. So we've all got these same basic outward facing senses. And by this point in our lives, we are very familiar with them. We've got our outer facing eyes, what I see. We've got our outer facing ears, what I hear. We've got our nose, what do I smell? What is that taste in my mouth? How am I feeling? What am I sensing? Even tactile sensation. Where we don't have as much awareness is to recognize that there's also an inner facing or an inward facing version of each one of those senses that's still active, whether we use them or not. We have our inner sight, we have our inner hearing, our inner smelling, our inner tasting, our inner tactile sensation, our inner emotion, our feelings, and our inner gut knowing. Things that we just know, we don't know how or why we know them, and we cannot unknow them. But since we're not aware that our senses function in both directions, this is where so many of us get stuck in intuition. It's vague, it's random. If it doesn't arrive with all the pomp and circumstance of a fire breathing dragon, I'm not going to believe in it because we're not used to paying attention to these subtler, softer, inward facing senses. They are like our inner GPS system. And I'm going to give you an example right now of exactly how they work. Right now, as you're watching or listening, I want you to call to mind pizza. Yes, I just said it, pizza. You most likely, unless I've just interrupted your lunch hour, you don't have a slice or a pie anywhere in sight. So how do you know that pizza is present in your awareness? This is a really fun exercise that you can start doing right now and take it with you out into the world and use it every single day to start strengthening your inner facing senses. So as I say the word pizza, you don't have a slice anywhere around, at least not that we're aware of. And yet suddenly your awareness has turned to pizza. How do you know that you are aware of pizza? Perhaps you are seeing the subtle impression of a slice or a whole pie with your inner eye. You just got the subtle sensation, kind of like if you look at the sun with your eyes open and then you close your eyes and you can still see the outline of the sun. That's how I experience my inner facing vision, if that's helpful for you. So it's a subtler, maybe slightly blurry, not as bright or vibrant colored impression, a visual impression of pizza. Somebody could hand you an orange and you would know that that orange is a fruit. It's not a slice of pizza. And in fact, you might have just visualized with your inward facing sight an orange with its rough, knobby skin and its little area where the stem used to attach as the fruit was growing. So you can already start playing with this and notice I'm aware of the subtle visual impression of pizza. Now, maybe you're more auditory. Maybe you hear the word pizza. Maybe your imagination is vivid and you actually hear the pizza person calling your name and saying your pizza is ready. But it's more of an auditory impression. Again, there isn't an actual human standing next to you saying pizza into your ear. It's a subtler, rainier, a little bit more amorphous voice. And you might actually ask yourself, do I hear it more near my right ear, near my left ear? I notice I hear a lot of my auditory impressions more in the area of my right ear. That's just how it happens for me. For some people, they might hear it more in their left ear or in the back of their head or somewhere else. They might feel it reverberate in their chest. So you have to, again, get very curious. Where is it coming up for you? For those of you who have a very strong sense of smell, you might actually begin smelling the aroma of pizza. You might actually be wandering around your house going, who's heating up a pizza around here? Maybe it's not as overpowering as the smell of walking into a pizzeria, but you still know the difference between the smell of pizza and the smell of orange juice. And you might notice where you sense that aroma within yourself. For me, it's underneath my eyes. I get a sense of aroma in that area a lot, which is weird. But I guess given that it's intuitive, it's not necessary that it come through the nose, as if I'm leaning over a slice and sniffing it and going, yep, that's pizza. For those of you who have a very sensitive sense of taste, you might actually be tasting pizza. You know what pizza tastes like. Maybe you're even tasting your favorite kind of pizza with all of the subtle flavors of Hawaiian pizza or margarita pizza or pepperoni pizza or whatever kind of pizza that you love the most. Maybe you just have an inner awareness. Pizza. Pizza has entered the building. Pizza is here. You just know it. None of your other senses really activate all that much, but you just know it. Or maybe you have a feeling such as anticipation or joy or enjoyment or hunger. And that is how you know that pizza is present. You might even have a tactile sensation of holding a slice of pizza in your hand. These are all different intuitive sensory pathways. And maybe you've heard teachers talk about, oh, some people are clairvoyant, some people are clairaudient. So clairvoyant is clear seeing, clairaudient is clear hearing. Some people are highly claircognizant. That happens to be one of my strongest pathways, clear knowing. Some people are clair empath, and they just are very emotional. They sense energy and motion very easily. Some people are highly clairsentient. They're very aware of sensation and the feelings around sensation. So there's all different flavors. And maybe you've even heard it to the effect of, well, if you're clairvoyant, you can't also be clairaudient. Or if you're claircognizant, you can't also be clairsentient. That has not been my experience. What has been my experience is we all get all of these pathways, but for whatever reason, often it's because of the pathway that is most useful for us to navigate through early life challenges. We just come through our early years more reliant on that one pathway over all the others. So it's kind of like if you imagine that you're a pitcher for a baseball team, and because you're always using your right arm to throw, that arm is just stronger than all the other limbs in your body in a particular way because of such long-standing use and reliance. But that doesn't mean that you're doomed to be only clairvoyant or only claircognizant forever. All it means is that you've already got one wide open pathway. So now let's go develop the others. One of the easiest ways to start developing your other intuitive pathways is to take our pizza example. Super simplistic, but one of the core foundations of staying alive, if we were still out in the greater food chain of life, we would very much rely on these senses, these inward facing senses. So you can start playing with pizza and imagine that it's something that's brand new to you. So instead of just defaulting to your dominant inward facing sense, for instance, your clairvoyance, that you see a slice, check, I know that's pizza. What's the next exercise? Stop and challenge yourself and ask yourself, if I was only able to use my hearing, my clairaudience, how would my clairaudience let me know that it's pizza and not an orange that I'm looking at? If I was only able to use my clairsalience, my clear smelling, how would I know that what I was smelling is pizza and not orange juice? Same with tasting, same with your clear knowing, your clear cognizance. If all I had access to was clear knowing or clear feeling or clear sensing, how would my intuitive toolkit, my sixth sensory toolkit, deliver the information to me that this is pizza and not an orange tree? And you could do this for everything and start building up these intuitive sensory pathways again. Start practicing with them. Start noticing, wondering, getting curious. Call to mind a rose or a cup of coffee or your pet. How would you know that it's your pet who's just entered the room and not your best friend's pet or the wild squirrel outside or the neighbor's cat? This is called sensing energetic signatures, and it's a deeper level of putting our sixth sensory toolkit to work. This is something that you can just start playing with. You can start noticing how each one of these inward facing pathways is attempting to deliver information to you and just having fun with this. And I would love to hear your experiences and your takeaways as you begin reactivating your six sensory toolkit, your inward facing senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, sensing, feeling, and that gut level knowing. And I also want to leave you with this parting thought. Yes, there is probably still going to be a part of your left brain mind that is trying to convince you that this is all just too woo-woo for words, that it's not practical, that it isn't going to get you anywhere you want or need to go in life, that it is something that you're never going to be able to rely on the way you have come to rely on your left brain mind. But consider this. It wasn't so long ago, wasn't so many decades ago, really, that we human animals were out there along with all of the rest of the animal species and waking up every morning knowing we have two key items on our agenda yet again that day. One, to get food, and two, to avoid becoming food. And those kinds of activities require us to be right here, right now, with ourselves, sensing and feeling into what is happening in this moment in time. You see, it's only been very recently that we have come to regard this inward facing sensory toolkit as impractical, outdated, the stuff of imagination. Once upon a time, we too used these very same inward facing senses to survive and hopefully to thrive out there in the wilderness with all the other animal species. And believe it or not, these same tools can help us to survive and thrive in this modern world within our own species as well. So this is where we start, just reactivating these pathways, beginning to bring each one of our inward facing senses back online, taking them out for a test drive, getting to know them again, walking alongside ourselves with curiosity and openness and genuine interest in what am I feeling right now? What am I seeing right now? What am I hearing right now? What am I smelling and tasting and sensing? What do I simply know right now? And using that data to inform our next steps, our next moment decision. So that's what I've got for you here today on Let's Talk to Animals. Again, I look forward to hearing your experiences, your takeaways, your ahas, what you're practicing with. And if you would like to continue this exploration and take the next steps, you can find all the links to enroll in one of my Intuitive Development for Pet Parents webinars and to join up for the Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery student program and practice circle that I run for student practitioners. So thank you once again for taking the time to spend your valuable time with me. And I look forward to welcoming you back very soon for another fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, all my love. Bye for now. I have so enjoyed sharing this episode with you. If you're new to the Let's Talk to Animals community and you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review on your favorite streaming service or drop a comment wherever you like to listen. I love to hear from you, and your feedback truly helps me shape future episodes based on your interests and needs. If you're not already in my weekly Love Letters community, head over to animallovelanguages.com to opt in. Your welcome email will include $25 off your first pet session with me, and you'll be the first to know when a new podcast episode drops. If you're interested in learning more about the work I do communicating with animals, offering pet Reiki, and teaching animal communication, please visit me at animallovelanguages.com. Click on Schedule for Pet Sessions and Programs for all the information about my new Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery student program and the live animal communication practice circle I run for student practitioners. And I look forward to welcoming you back here very soon for a fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, all my love. Bye for now.